The door to the roadside bar creaked open as a small silhouette slipped inside, letting a sliver of fading daylight cut through the smoky, dim room. The laughter paused for a heartbeat, just long enough for every pair of rugged, ink-covered eyes to swing toward the newcomer. She couldn't have been more than 16 or 17, swallowed in an oversized leather jacket that looked far older than she was. Mud clung to her sneakers, threads hung loose from her torn jeans, and her ponytail was more a tangle than a hairstyle. She stopped just past the threshold, fingers gripping the jacket edges like a shield. Confusion flickered through the crowd first, then disbelief, and then the laughter began. Not cruel, just the stunned kind that spreads when something unexpected crashes into the familiar. But it grew louder, hoots, whistles, boots hitting the floorboards. The Iron Wolves, the county's infamous biker club, had never seen a kid wander in alone. A teen girl standing among men who rode roaring machines and lived by oaths older than her lifetime. The biggest among them, Tank, leaned back with a grin. "Would you look at that?" A stray scout wandered off her trail. More laughter. Bottles clinked. Someone slapped the bar. But the girl didn't flinch. She inhaled slowly, waiting. And as the noise died, the room finally noticed the symbol on the back of her jacket. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength inside people, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us keep these stories alive. The patch wasn't new. Its threads were worn, colors dulled by years of sun and wind. But the words were unmistakable. Iron Wolves, founding member. Silence rippled through the bar like a sudden cold breeze. The men straightened in their seats. Some frowned, others exchanged uneasy looks. That patch wasn't something bought or borrowed. It was earned, by legends who built the club long before most of these men even owned their first bike. The girl slowly turned, meeting their eyes. When she spoke, her voice wavered, but she didn't hide. "This jacket belonged to my dad. Eli Rivers." The name hit harder than any punch. Eli Rivers, one of the Iron Wolves' best riders, a man known for courage and loyalty, a brother who led with heart more than might. Years ago, he died on Route 66 while rescuing a family trapped in a burning car. None of them had seen his daughter since his funeral. And here she was, wearing his jacket like armor. Her name was Mara, and she wasn't there for memories. "My mom's sick. Bills are stacking up. No one in town will help us. She always said Dad's brothers wouldn't let us fall." She swallowed hard. "I didn't know where else to go." Her words crashed over them. The same men who joked a moment ago suddenly looked smaller, older. They had vowed, long ago, to watch over Eli's family. But years blur promises, and life keeps moving until one day a reminder walks through a bar door in an oversized jacket. Tank, who had laughed loudest, pushed to his feet. His voice was rough, cracked with regret. "Kid, you shouldn't have had to come here alone." A heavy stillness settled. Around the room, nods were exchanged, silent agreements that spoke louder than any oath. Something old had been awakened. That night, Mara didn't ride home alone. A convoy of revving engines trailed behind her, headlights slicing through the dark. The Iron Wolves rode like a storm, surrounding her with a wall of roar and steel. They didn't just fix her house, they rebuilt it. By morning, neighbors watched in shock as leather-clad bikers hammered boards, painted walls, repaired fences, and carried crates of groceries. Mara's mother smiled for the first time in months. But the help didn't end there. Something inside the club shifted. Mara became a reminder of everything they once stood for: loyalty, brotherhood, honor. Old pride gave way to purpose. They started food drives, charity rides, hospital visits, rediscovering the heart behind their patch. And at every ride, right at the front, was Mara on her father's bike, lovingly restored by the very men who thought they had nothing left to prove. People in the town began whispering her new name. The Little Wolf. Weeks passed and the Iron Wolves found themselves changed in ways none of them expected. What began as a single night of repayment soon grew into something deeper. Every time Mara rode beside them, her father's jacket tight around her small frame, the founding patch glinting in the sun, it reminded them of the brother they had lost and the promises they had forgotten. The club's clubhouse, once echoing with loud music and rowdy nights, became a place of quieter purpose. Maps of charity routes replaced posters of old rallies. Shelves that once held nothing but spare parts now stored food supplies for families who couldn't afford their next meal. And every time someone asked why the wolves were changing, the men would simply glance at Mara and smile. To them, she wasn't just Eli's daughter. She was the spark that lit their old spirit again. Tank, once the loudest, wildest of the group, took Mara in like a guardian. He taught her how to handle a bike on rough roads, how to keep her balance in rain, and how to read the wind like her father used to. The other riders followed suit, offering guidance, tools, protection, whatever she needed. Mara, quiet but determined, soaked up everything. She wasn't trying to replace Eli, but in every movement, every ride, she carried pieces of him. Still, beneath the newfound unity, a shadow hung over the club. Change wasn't easy for everyone. Some members, the older, stubborn ones, believed the Iron Wolves had no place playing heroes. They muttered about traditions, about how the club used to operate. They didn't appreciate being reminded of their forgotten promises. One of them was Riker, a rider with a permanent scowl and a reputation for causing trouble. He was loyal in his own way, but he hated that a 16-year-old kid in a dead man's jacket, as he put it, had become the group's moral compass. One evening, as Mara prepared for another charity ride, Riker cornered her outside the clubhouse. "You think wearing your daddy's patch makes you one of us?" he sneered, smoke curling from the cigarette between his fingers. Mara didn't raise her voice. She never did. "No," she said calmly. "But I think it reminds you who you used to be." Tank stepped out just in time to hear it. His jaw clenched, eyes narrowing. "Riker, back off," he growled. Riker spat on the ground and stalked away, muttering curses. Despite moments like that, the Iron Wolves kept riding, kept rebuilding their reputation, kept honoring Eli's legacy. Mara became a symbol to people beyond their town. Photos of the wolves delivering food with a girl leading the pack went viral. Donations poured in. Veteran groups requested help. Hospitals invited them to visit children. Through it all, Mara rode every mile, her face calm, eyes focused, just like her father. But even as she grew stronger, her mother grew weaker. Each night, Mara returned home to help with medications, meals, and late-night worries. She tried to hide her exhaustion from the wolves, but Tank saw the shadows under her eyes, the tremble in her hands when she thought no one was looking. One rainy night, after a long ride, Tank pulled her aside. "You're carrying too much on your own," he said softly. Mara shook her head. "Mom needs me. I'm all she has." "No," Tank corrected gently. "You've got us. And she's got us too." True to his word, the next morning, 3 wolves were at her doorstep repairing the roof. 2 others cooked meals and stocked the kitchen. Someone even arranged for a nurse to check in regularly. Mara tried to thank them, but Tank simply placed a hand on her shoulder. "Family isn't blood," he said. "It's who shows up." Their unity grew stronger, but trouble brewed quietly, waiting for the right moment to erupt. The annual Iron Wolves gathering was approaching, a massive event where members from every chapter came together. Old grudges resurfaced. Old beliefs clashed with the club's new direction. Some didn't like how much attention Mara had brought. Others wanted the charity work to stop. Whispers spread. Arguments simmered. The past and the present were on a collision course. And Mara, without even realizing it, stood at the center. She didn't know that soon the decisions made at that gathering would change not just her life, but the destiny of the Iron Wolves forever. The annual Iron Wolves gathering arrived with the roar of hundreds of engines echoing across the old fairgrounds. Riders from every chapter, men who had been part of the club for decades and newcomers hungry for belonging, poured in from every direction. Leather jackets, polished chrome, bonfires crackling under the open sky. It was a scene straight from the club's earliest days. But beneath the celebration, tension simmered. Some members admired the Iron Wolves' transformation, how they had become protectors rather than just riders. Others, especially the older, hard-edged chapters, believed the club had softened. Many of them had only heard rumors about the girl with the founding patch, and their whispers carried a bitter edge. Mara arrived with Tank and the local chapter, riding her father's restored bike. As she rolled into the center of the gathering, the low chatter around her shifted. Riders nudged each other, pointing at the familiar old patch on her back, the one they had all believed was gone forever. She parked the bike gently, swung her leg off, and stood tall despite the storm of eyes on her. Some riders nodded respectfully. Others scowled openly. One voice called out, "Kids don't belong in a club meeting." Tank stepped forward, his tone sharp. "She belongs anywhere her father once stood." But before an argument could spark, the club's national president, a graying man named Bishop, raised his hand for silence. His voice carried over the murmurs. "If she wears Eli Rivers' jacket, she has a right to be here." The crowd quieted. Bishop approached Mara directly, his gaze softening. "Your father was a brother to us all. What you've inspired, we haven't seen in years." Mara lowered her eyes briefly. "I didn't do anything. I just asked for help." "Exactly," Bishop said. "And it reminded us what brotherhood truly means." But not everyone agreed. Riker stepped forward, his voice dripping with resentment. "We're a biker club, not a charity service. Ever since she walked in, everything's changed and not for the better." A few riders murmured in agreement. Tank's jaw tightened. "You call helping people weakness? That's not what Eli believed." Riker shot back, "Eli's not here." The words sliced through the air. Mara felt them like a punch. Bishop raised his voice again, commanding attention. "Enough. The club will vote tonight, on whether to continue the new path, or return to the old ways." A heavy whisper rolled through the crowd. Mara suddenly felt small. This wasn't just about charity rides or repairs. This was about identity, about what the Iron Wolves would become. As the sun set and lanterns flickered to life, the vote began. The chapters argued fiercely, some praising the goodwill they had spread, others claiming they had lost their edge. Mara sat quietly at the edge of the gathering, her hands pressed together, heart pounding. She didn't want to sway them, she didn't want power, she only wanted them to remember her father's values. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, Bishop stepped onto the makeshift stage, holding a slip of paper. His expression was unreadable. Tank moved closer to Mara, his presence grounding her. Bishop cleared his throat. "The Iron Wolves have voted to stay the new course." A wave of relief washed over the crowd. Cheers, applause, sighs of relief. Even some of the doubters lowered their heads, accepting the decision. Riker cursed under his breath and stormed off, but no one followed him. Bishop continued, lifting his voice above the noise. "And there is one more matter." He nodded at Tank, who approached Mara carrying a small cloth-wrapped bundle. Her breath caught. She had seen that shape before. Tank placed it gently in her hands. "This is for you." Hands trembling, she unwrapped the cloth. Inside was a brand new patch, hand-stitched with care. And beneath it, "Daughter of Eli Rivers." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Bishop spoke softly, but his words carried weight. "Your father's spirit rides with you. And now, so do we." Mara's eyes filled, vision blurring as she touched the patch. The wolves had given her something more powerful than a title. They had given her belonging. Tank kneeled beside her motorcycle and held out a needle and thread. Behind them, the entire club fell silent as she carefully sewed the new patch beside her father's original one. Not a single rider remained unmoved. When she finished, she stood, wiping tears with the back of her hand. "Dad always said, the patch doesn't make you strong. It reminds you who you ride for." Silence blanketed the gathering, heavy, emotional, filled with pride. Then the wolves erupted into cheers. Engines roared to life. Lights flashed. Helmets lifted in salute. Bishop raised his arm. "Tonight we ride, for family, for loyalty, and for the legacy we almost forgot." Tank mounted his bike beside Mara. "You ready, little wolf?" She smiled softly. "Always." And as the Iron Wolves thundered down the open highway, the night wind caught her jacket, two patches gleaming under the stars. A reminder that kindness, like legacy, never fades, it only finds new riders to carry it forward.